Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Dockhouse Rugby Show. Today we've got three fantastic guests with us. We've got Mark Illingworth from the Superleague pod. Joining us is Martyn Sadler from Total Rugby League and League Express, and also Nicholas Mew, the ambassador for the Masters Rugby League over in Canada. Nicholas, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome everyone, great to have you all on the show. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Rugby League in North America. It's something you've got quite a lot of experience of, isn't it, Nicholas? Would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your early experiences of Rugby League?
I'm happy to talk about my experiences in Rugby League. The problem is getting me to stop. So it began with the onset of the Wolfpack, and Rugby League did exist, of course, in Canada prior to that, but it was under the radar for the vast majority of people. Most people did not know about it. I would say most people didn't know there were two codes, or actually more than that, but we'll say the two codes of rugby. And so I saw there was this Toronto team playing in a British league, and that fascinated me. And so I got onto social media and I started asking some questions about this. And a gentleman responded to me and he said, "Oh, I live in the same city as you," because I'm about 105 kilometers north of Toronto. So I'm about an hour and a bit's drive north of Toronto, depending on traffic. He said, "I live in the same city as you, and I've got season tickets that I can't use on a day in July." And this was in their first season. Would you like to take your family down? And I said, "Sure, I'd love to," because you wouldn't spend the money on spec on a sport you knew nothing about, driving an hour out of town to go down to someplace you didn't know, to see a sport you didn't know, not knowing what the experience is going to be like, right? So he gave me the free tickets and I'm like, well, all right, I'll take the family down. So the four of us went down and we absolutely loved it, fell in love with it right then and there. The welcome, the family feel. I've never been to a sport where after the match, we lined the edge of the pitch and the players came and thanked us for coming and encouraged us to come out again. And my youngest was so taken with that. He's like, Dad, we've got to go back. They asked us. So it was people like Reece Jacks, who played for the Wolfpack at the time. It was Dan Fleming. It was Greg Worthington. It was Jack Bussey. All these guys were fantastic, welcoming us. And my youngest was particularly taken with Fui Fui Moi Moi. Mm-hmm. So after that, we kept on going back periodically. And then we bought season tickets for every season following that. And my youngest became a ball runner. We'd drive down, like it was a full day. We would leave Barrie, where I live. We would leave Barrie 10 a.m. or so, an hour down there, have a meal before, get ready for the match, stay after the match, the socializing, the beer garden afterwards, and networking, meeting plenty of like-minded people who were also brand new to the sport. And I know that's a misconception that the crowds there were all expats. That's not true at all. But meeting all these people who were like, this is great, we need to do something with this. And what would happen is it was by increments. It was someone would say, hey, I see you're at this, would you be interested in doing X, or would you be interested in doing Y? And I was at the stage of my life, late 40s at the time, and I was like, yeah, okay, I've got a little bit of time. And so it would creep up on you. You'd gradually take on a little bit here and a little bit there. All because you really wanted to do it, like all in fun. And then the big kickstart for what we have taken on in Masters here was when I was contacted by the same gentleman who gave me the tickets, who it turns out became the president of Canada Rugby League, Bob Jowett. He said to me, Nicholas, there's a Masters team that wants to come over to play. Would you be willing to just reach out to people and try to put something together? I wouldn't be the coach. I would just be on social media, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, just trying to reach out to people or talking in the crowd, because I'm fairly chatty. And I said, yeah, sure, whatever. And so we put together a team, two teams, in fact, with a lot of overlap for the South London Silverbacks to come over. And were it not for that, were it not for being compelled to start, I don't know that it would have started up on its own. So that by being placed in the position of they're going to come over, and if they don't have somebody to face, it's a wasted trip for them, and we'll also look pretty ungrateful. It gave us a kick in the seat of the pants, right, to get
push to go and do it.
So it lit a fire under us, and we got the team together. And when we played, it was in June of 2019. We had a curtain raiser before the Dewsbury match on the Saturday, and we had also played the Thursday before at Lamport. So that was the very first Rugby League Masters matches held in Canada. I even managed to get the South London Silverbacks and some of the members of the Canada Wolverines and Ravens to come to my elementary school in Barrie. And we had a rugby day there. We managed to have the mayor of my city. We had the federal minister for sport actually at the school, because, we just reaching out, just talking to people. Would you like to come? Would you like? And we tried to make it as big as possible. And everybody was very positive and jumped on board. So a few of the guys at the inaugural matches were a little hesitant. Yeah, okay, I'll play in one game, but I won't play in both. But after the first match, everybody who was in that said, I'm going to be here for the second one. And we're like, but you didn't sign up for the second one. I don't care. I'm playing. I'll borrow his shirt. He's about the same size as me. And so we were swapping jerseys on the sidelines to enable everybody to play. And we just absolutely loved it ever since. So then from there, obviously, the demise of the Wolfpack and the struggles through COVID made it very difficult for us to continue. I mean, we are the only Masters club in all of North America at the moment. Like, we represent an entire continent, which is a pretty heavy burden. But we incorporated as a club, and we reached out for sponsorship, and we talked to as many people as we could, and we tried to invite our friends to come along, and we got a club put together. We didn't have anybody to play. So we would reach out to rugby union clubs, rugby union old boys clubs. Would you like to come play us? We'll play this code. And we got some people to join us. We also played against the Ontario women, because the Ontario women, who were many of whom represent Canada on the Canada Ravens, they had no opponents either. There is no women's league per se in Ontario. And so they ended up playing us in a can tag three game over a few months festival, or tournament, I guess you'd say. And it was a learning experience for all of us, because the older guys did not want to be shown up by the young women. And so they gave all that they had and left it out on the pitch. And if those girls could have seen the pain we were in the dressing room, I'm sure they would have felt better about the fact that we beat them all 3 games. But at the same time, we learned a lot as well. And we were like, okay, we've got to get back on defense. We are lackadaisical here. We really need to work at this. So that has been how it's developed, a little bit here, a little bit there. Now we're going to be continuing on with this this coming weekend. So as of right now, it's what's the date today, guys? May the 8th?
8th or 9th, yeah.
Okay. So next Saturday, we're actually going to be in British Columbia. We're going to be playing the first all-Canadian Masters game. So we're doing to BC what the Silverbacks did to us. We are going to go out there, and we've tried to say, okay, we're coming, whether you have a team or not, we're coming.
We'll take the pitch.
And a few people there have jumped all over it. They have said, yes, we'll organize some practices. We'll get some things together. There's a rugby union old boys club out there. They're hosting us. There is the new president, the new interim president of Canada Rugby League, Josh Knight. He ran a couple of coaching sessions because he's out in British Columbia. And this is not an inexpensive proposition, because we're talking a 5-hour flight across 3 time zones. So we'll be going out there. Some guys are flying out late Friday. Some are going out the Saturday morning, the day of the game. Then we'll play in the afternoon, stay over Saturday night, and fly back Sunday to be ready for work on Monday again. Because
how many of you are going, Nick? How many are in the squad altogether?
As of right now, I believe there's 20 of us.
Right.
So
well, that's some commitment.
And it's a 13-a-side game, presumably, is it?
Yes. We'll be playing 13-a-side.
Yeah, just a nice little segue there, Martin, because for those who don't know, Masters Rugby League is a game of rugby, but played within very different levels. And correct me if I'm right or wrong here, Nick. So those who wear white and black shorts can tackle normally, and their age range is from 35 up to 59. Is that right?
Close. So the white shorters are 35 to 39. The black shorters are 40 to 49. They are full tackle. It
full tackle. Yeah.
Like regular, open age rugby league.
Yeah.
50
And then, sorry, go on.
I was going to say 50 to 59, and I'm in that category, which is red.
Red, yeah.
We have a little bit of leeway. So for us to tackle, as long as we stop their forward progress, we wrap, we stop their forward progress, that's a tackle. And they can do the same to us. So I don't have to be taken to ground. However, if I choose to fight my way through the tackle, then they do have the right to take me to ground. And, in the first half, you fight your way through the tackle. In the second half, you concede. But then the gold shorters, 60 to 69, they have Velcro tags on the side of their shorts. And so they are tackled by someone taking the tag off, and they tackle others by a literal tag, like a literal tap. And there is nothing that makes a 35-year-old with a head of steam madder than a guy who's 65 just tapping him. And he's just like, you've ruined my run.
Yeah.
I don't have that experience, but
And then you've also got green shorters who are 70 to 79 and blue shorts for the 80 plus.
that's right. So
Amazing.
when we were over in last November, the Canada Grizzlies came over to take part in the first International Masters Festival. There was Ireland, Wales, England, and the inaugural Canada Grizzlies. That's right. You were out at the were you at the Crossfields?
Warrington.
Yeah, but there was a game at Crossfields in Warrington which I watched, but I also went to the game at Lee Sports Village.
Yeah, that was the World Cup Festival. We also had our very first warm-up match, which was at Hunslet's ground, and it was called the Dads and Lads. So every member of the opposition were both masters, so they both had to be of age. And the one pairing, a father-son combination, their combined ages was 134.
Wow.
You know what that reminds me? My dad is a big cricketer, loves playing cricket, and it was only a few years ago. He said, bit of a match on at weekend down at the local cricket club. Would you come down? Oh, okay, I'm not too busy. So I went down. It was a dads and lads. I was older than most of dads. And I was a lad, so I'm playing. He was like 11 and 12-year-olds and me at 47 at the time.
Why'd you keep winning? It's because I'm 48.
It was really awkward when we took a wicket and we're high-fiving. I was so much taller than everyone else. Sorry, I cut it.
No, that's wonderful. And you actually inadvertently kind of led me to one of the big benefits of Masters Rugby League. Now, first of all, it has brought people back into the fold of the sport who have drifted away. So a lot of the guys on the Masters have said, you know what? Now that I'm involved again, I think I'll take a leadership role. Maybe I'll do some coaching. Maybe I'll run for an executive position. Maybe I'll go to be a head of a provincial body or a treasurer or any of these roles where they would have been lost, right? So they would have aged out of rugby league. There was really no role for them, or they didn't feel that there was something for them to be involved in anymore. Now there is. And so that's one big aspect of it. But the one I was alluding to with you was more that the mental health and the positive feel of this. So this has been absolutely brilliant for me and many of my teammates, especially during COVID. We had a team, we've got this support group. Masters is the social aspect is paramount. So it's not just what happens on the pitch. That's a lot of fun, and that's bragging rights, but ultimately it's the social aspect as well. So you reach out to veterans, for example, who have lost that closeness of being with their units, shall we say. And so they don't have a team, they don't have a connection, and maybe some of them decide they're going to withdraw. Now you've got something to bring them in to say, hey, come on out and join with us. And it doesn't matter about your ability level either. The first time I picked up a rugby ball to play was when I was 50, and I'm 53 now.
But one thing I love, Nicholas, there, and it's written in the rule book, and it's a rule called Spirit of the Masters. And the fact that is just, it's got a spirit, it's got an ethos, this game, to it already. And it is that each team has the same number of players, including, so if you've only got 12 players, if you get a player sin-binned, then you can replace them with another player. If you get a player sent off, you can replace them with another player. So your team isn't at a detriment. You're still at 13. But if you turn up and you've only got 12, or you've only got 13 and one sin bin, another team either goes to 12 or they loan you a player. Yeah. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. That just keeps the game going and flowing, and there's no disadvantage to either side. And that's like I say, there's an element of the rule book called the spirit of the Masters, and to me that epitomised it. Yeah.
So tied into that is one of the rules, which is run at the gaps. You've got to run at the gaps. Don't run at players to knock them down, because we're not out to hurt each other. We're out to have a great time, play the sport we love, socialize, hopefully bring some more people into it. And if you're running over people to flatten them, that's not in the spirit of Masters. We're not out to hurt anybody. And so you can get sent off for that, just for like, you know what, you seem a little too aggressive today. Maybe you should take 10 minutes on the side to think about that. And then you can come back afterwards.
That's good. I really like that. I like that adage of run at the gaps as well. I think some Super League clubs could learn from trying to run at some gaps.
And those gaps close pretty quickly, but at least you were headed there initially, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Now, the other thing that I mentioned was the Canada Grizzlies. So it was partway through last year, the Rugby League World Cup was obviously going to be taking place in the UK, and a Masters Festival was going to be held at the same time. And the plan was to have it in Lee, and all the countries were invited, and it was with no little irony to me that for the sake of player welfare, the Rugby League World Cup was postponed, while all of us old guys who were more susceptible, our tournament went ahead. And so we were able to come over. And it was presented to the team, presented to the Greybeards, as well as across the country. Anybody who would like to apply for a position with the Canada Grizzlies, the newly founded Canada Grizzlies, send in an application to the tour committee, and the criteria were set there. So it wasn't necessarily that you've been playing rugby league your whole life. Like, obviously I hadn't. Maybe it was you've joined and you're doing your best to promote it. So, you could be accepted because of what you were doing for the sport right now and how you're helping. But you did have to be a member of a Masters club. And so that did limit it. Now, we had a gentleman, and we still have a gentleman. He flies in from Saskatchewan for practices, which is a few time zones away. He's got family with Air Canada, so he gets standby flights, and he will fly into us. He was there today at our practice, because I was just there earlier today. And he came and he represented the West. And we had a gentleman, Josh Knight, I mentioned earlier. He represented British Columbia. Bob, the then president of Canada Rugby League, unfortunately, he's had to step away due to the fact that the pressures of his employment, and he's moved provinces. He's in Manitoba, so he came out for that too. The rest of the guys were mainly Ontario Greybeards. So the team was formed, the Canada Grizzlies was formed, and then it was put out, and it was no, shall we say, no inexpensive venture to come over, because you've got to take obviously time off work. I don't know if you're aware of this, but in Canada, when you start employment, you get 2 weeks holiday, annual holiday a year. That's it. You get 2 weeks.
Right.
So for some of the guys, they were using all their annual holiday to come out. Me as a teacher, it's impossible to get time off during term time. That's just non-existent. And so it turns out that in my contract, there's a clause called the once in a lifetime clause, where I could go and I could say, look, there's this major event that I really would like to take part in. And yes, I'm willing to take a week or 2 weeks or however many days unpaid to go and do this. Now, if I'd said I want to go out to visit friends someplace elsewhere in the world, they would have been like, no. But because I am saying, look, I'm representing Canada, I am showing to my students lifelong learning. I'm showing to them trying to be healthy, trying to exercise, all these positive things. This is my rationale. And the school board was, yep, we support that. That's fantastic. You go ahead with our blessing.
Rightly so.
And no money, but with our blessing. So we flew out. We had to do obviously the airfare, the hotel, transport all across the UK. We played 2 warm-up matches. We had 3 matches on the day at the festival in Lee. And we had a lot of socializing as well. The initial plan was for us to be there at the same time as the Canada Ravens and also support them in the Women's Rugby League World Cup.
Yeah.
That is now the plan for this November. So the festival is going to be done again, only this time it's going to be hosted in York. And 2 more teams are coming. So there's going to be Canada, England, Wales, Ireland, but also Australia and France. And so that's going to be held.
But have you got a twice in a lifetime written into your contract?
I'm glad you asked that. So no, but it's a limit of 10 days. I've only used 7 of those 10 days. So I've got 3. I also have a personal day in my contract. So now I'm up to 4. Let's tag in a weekend. Okay, so now I can do 6 days.
And then you got a snort bug.
If I can just convince them to give me 1 more day, I can tag in the other weekend. So anyway, that's my plan. I'm gonna see what I can do.
I'll tell you
Well,
what, when you come over, Nick, we'll kidnap you and keep you here,
Yes.
you know, under duress, so you can let them know that you can't go back.
You planned to be only 3 days, but they wouldn't let me go back, so you ended up doing a fortnight.
I'll record it. We'll edit it. We'll send it to the school.
Yeah, we'll demand a ransom payment.
Yes, of his full 2 weeks' salary, or else you're not having him back.
Oh, that'd be lovely. But now for the other guys who came, they made a lot of sacrifices in order to come, and we were hunting around trying to get as much sponsorship as we could, because it is an expensive proposition. While we were over there, and I'm not ashamed to say this now or in going forward, we needed all the support we could get. We needed help. We needed simple things like a number of supporters brought us rugby balls, because we didn't even have that. So we brought back in our kit bags lots of deflated rugby balls that were donated to us, which was fantastic. The Wigan kit manager, one of the Wigan kit managers, had some old and no longer needed shorts with the older sponsors on. And so he's like, look, these are all black shorts. You can use them for the black shorters. So we were cramming those in our bags to bring back to Canada as well. You know, anything we could get our hands on to try to help us. So no, those Wigan shorts are actually headed out to BC this coming weekend, because we're not sure if they have the right color shorts. So we're going to hopefully help them.
Loan them out.
Yeah.
So does that feel nice then, Mark? A bit of Wigan making its way out over to North America.
Just in time for them to all become Wigan fans for the Challenge Cup final, isn't it? So that's great news to hear.
Unless any fans of Huddersfield are going to watch this show and they find some old tops that they can share with you, Nicholas, and get out there to try and convert them.
Do they have any old gold shorts? Maybe you'll need some gold shorts.
Yeah, they might have, maybe, possibly, yeah.
Well, you know what? We'll take anything. If somebody wants to send us some shorts, or when we're over, if they want to show up and say, here you go, here's some of my old Masters shorts in red, gold, blue, green, whatever, kit, rugby balls. I could even do with one of those tighteners for the studs on my boots.
Yeah. All donations are welcome. Well, what we should do is encourage everyone to use the Twitter and our Facebook page and try and promote and invite people to share stuff with you like that. It'd be nice for you, people who have old tops, old rugby tops, maybe they want to send them out to Canada, so people are wearing them over there.
Where can they find you on social media, Nicholas?
Well, we've got our team website, OntarioGreybeards.com. I'm happy to, if you guys don't mind sharing it, put it on with you, and it's got all the ways to contact the team. And of course, there's me on Twitter and I'm on Facebook. I don't use a pseudonym. I'm Nicholas Mew on Facebook, and I'm Canadian Rugby League supporter on Twitter.
We'll make sure we share all that, Nicholas, and we'll try and get more people following and donating whatever they can, and really help generate as much interest as we can. I'd like to ask Martyn, have you ever done anything about Masters in League Express? Has that ever featured yet?
Only very, very occasionally. It's funny actually, because one of the things about producing a newspaper is that you've got a fairly limited amount of space. We normally go to about 40 pages maximum before printing gets quite expensive. And we started in 1990, and back in those days, rugby league, although it seemed, fairly extensive at the time, it was nothing compared to what it is today. There are so many different branches of rugby league, women's rugby league, for example, much greater emphasis on youth rugby league and, the community game, and other forms of rugby league being established, like Masters, like physical disability rugby league, learning disability rugby league. And it's actually quite difficult to cover all of it when we're a fairly small organization.
Yeah.
And obviously most of our attention has to be paid to the higher levels of the game. So,
Yeah.
and even that's hard enough, because one of the other changes that's occurred in rugby league since 1990 is that it's on television far more than it ever was in those days. You could spend all your time watching rugby league and doing very little else nowadays on TV. You've got Superleague, the Challenge Cup, the Championship, the NRL, all the games that are shown on our league and so on. It's a hell of a challenge to keep up with the game now, and of course we've then got social media, which keeps everything so current. Everything now is, at this particular moment in time, isn't it? There's a game taking place and everybody comments on it immediately, and so on. It's a real different world. I mean, just having podcasts, for example, like Mark has, those things never existed before. So people have far more sources of information than they ever used to have. And there's just far more happening that you would like to pick up on. So the short answer is we don't do a great deal on Masters Rugby League. But the long answer, I hope, has given you a fairly good excuse for why we don't.
But we'll possibly in future, as Masters start to grow, and a lot of the good work you're doing yourself, Nicholas, and your colleagues over there, hopefully in time that promotion may force its way into some of the newspapers at League Express.
Well, the more when you develop formal competitions, and it's a formal part of rugby league, then it becomes much more coverable. Really, it becomes of much greater interest. If you've got a World Cup in the Masters game, it becomes far more interesting. Although again, I'm a bit unsure about that, really, because and I'd like Nick's view on this, because it's a pleasure to play Masters Rugby League, and I'm not sure that we'd want to make it too formal and too competitive. You don't really want people going home, after a game being seriously depressed that they've lost, and you don't really want fans turning up and becoming too emotionally connected with it in a sense, and it becoming too serious. So it's a sort of it's a game for participants, isn't it? Masters Rugby League, really, and that's when it's at its most. That's when the fun element is at its greatest.
Yeah, the spirit, as Keith mentioned earlier, it's all about the spirit.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Well, we certainly, after we played the dads and lads, and we did not feel we played our best game, and we relived that for every day afterwards up until our next match. It's not so much that we were despondent, but it was more frustrated that we know we could do better than that. And so there is still that competitive nature. Now, of course, the scores officially end 0-0, but we all know who wins the game and who doesn't. Right? So when we played England, Wales, and Ireland in that festival, we won one, drew one, lost one. Officially, we all drew. But the reality is it was a win-loss and a draw. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Martyn, but as part of the French bid for the Rugby League World Cup, a Masters Festival is in fact a part of that.
Right.
So there will be as a component to go along with the Wheelchair Rugby League, the women's and the men's, there will be a Masters component. Unfortunately, the next one that we're having in November doesn't include our brethren in New Zealand, where the Masters Rugby League actually officially began. We're hoping to see them. And then we've got people in the States who are trying to get it started up there. And we also hope to be missionaries. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but we also hope to be missionaries to head down there. I've had a gentleman in Florida reach out to me. Hey, that looks great. I'd love to be a part of it. And Romeo Monteith has spoken about trying to get something in Jamaica.
Oh yeah.
In that regards as well. So it again, back to the idea that it's not just the fact what we can do on the pitch. It's not just the playing. That's all wonderful. And the social aspect of that and the mental health and the physical health of that is great. But these are people who are now saying, I want to be a part of the hierarchy. I want to be a part of the organization of rugby league. So we had a gentleman from the RLEF come to Canada, and he ran a coaching clinic here. And so a lot of the guys who are masters were there taking our coach certification. And so now I'm trying to teach this version of it in my elementary school. I teach kids 12, 13, 14. Were it not for masters, none of this would have happened. I would have been despondent about the demise of the Wolfpack, and that would have been it. I would have, been lost to the sport. But
Can I just ask you about the demise of the Wolfpack? I know it's slightly off topic, in terms of masters, but I mean, how many people did we really lose with the demise of the Wolfpack? I mean, it just looked to me to be going so well in Canada, in Toronto, that I thought it was an incredible tragedy that we, saw the Wolfpack disappear, and it struck me as a fantastic opportunity missed for rugby league. And I mean, you're obviously much nearer to the Toronto than I am, and what's your view, Nick?
I agree wholeheartedly. It was poised to truly take off. I don't know anybody who came to a match who said, "No, I'm not coming back again." Everybody who came out enjoyed it. They said, "This is a great day out. It's affordable. It's for all ages." It wasn't just the match. It was the before. It was the after. It was the halftime show. It was the whole game day experience. And so, as I said, it was really poised to take off. And I know there's a lot of misconceptions out there. People saying, "Well, all the tickets were free." No, that's not the case at all. But even if it was, you can't force people to come to a game, even if the tickets are free, and get them to stay. Right? And they want to go. The shop would do roughly $30,000 worth of merchandise sales every weekend. Every time they had a game, they'd sell. No, that's
just incredible, isn't it?
But people wanted to have a bit of the merchandise, and they had part of the concessions, and they had a cut of the beer garden there, and it just was getting bigger and bigger all the time. And from my perspective, as a Masters player, we were able to play on the pitch a couple of times, either as a curtain raiser or even halftime. So the £1 million game versus Featherston, we went out there. The Ontario Greybeards went out there, and we played. A number of Featherston fans who came over on the pitch, and that actually helped us recruit as well, because people saw us. So people, if people don't see what you're doing, they don't take part. They're not going to hunt on social media for something on spec. Oh, I wonder if there's a sport for men over 35 I could take part in. But if you're at the game and you see these people running around and having a great time, you're like, what is that? What are they doing? Kids were also part of that. So there was the Haldeman Wolfpack, which was a youth team, and they would play on the pitch again at halftime or before or after. And families with children would be like, "Oh, look what they're doing. Would you like to do that too?" And so kids would want to get involved as well. So
absolutely. Do you think the Wolfpack could ever be revived?
I do, but unfortunately, there's been a lot of poisoning of the well. There's been a lot of bad blood. There are still people who remain unpaid. Yeah. And so there would have to be a new iteration of the team. As much as that branding was absolutely brilliant, it brings a lot of baggage with it. And some people don't understand that the new owners of the intellectual property are not the previous owners of the intellectual property. Like that was bought. And so whenever someone says, "Oh, look, the Toronto Wolfpack are going to be doing this," it's the new iteration of the team. But then the people who are owed money come back and, "How dare you do that when you still owe all this money?"
Oh, yeah.
Trying to explain to them, no, it's a different organization, does not help.
Problematic.
So it could take off. However, in the meantime, you've got the Toronto Arrows Rugby Union Club that started. And they are filling the gap that rugby league has left.
Well, it's funny, because I spoke to their president, the Arrows, roughly at the time that the Wolfpack were going through this terrible situation, and he predicted that, Major League Rugby, he thought was going to take off in Toronto, and inevitably it would be easier for them if the Wolfpack weren't there, I suppose. And I had a couple of discussions with him through gritted teeth, I'm afraid, but it was very difficult not to see where he was coming from, unfortunately. What sort of crowds did they get at their games?
Not the size of the Wolfpack as of yet. but you're talking about Bill Webb, and I've
Bill Webb,
spoken to Bill, and I've said to him, would it be all right if we came out sometime and played before your matches as a curtain raiser to introduce rugby league? And he's actually been open to it, not this season, because this is the first season that they've been able to play back in Toronto, because they had to play all their games last year in the States. They didn't get to come up here at all. But yeah, going forward, and there are members of the media team of the Wolfpack who now work for the Arrows, including the mascot. So the gentleman who did the Wolf mascot is now the Arrows mascot in a different outfit.
Which mascot, Jefferson or the other guy?
oh God, Jefferson. Yeah, Jefferson, not Gordo.
Where does it leave? Where does with the Ravens coming over for the World Cup, there's clearly still activity in Canada in the rugby league sphere, but where does it leave things with NRL not really taking off? It feels like too many people maybe have their own ideas for what they want to happen with the sport in North America, and you seem like a uniting figure, Nicholas. I don't know if you're speaking to them all and trying to get them all to sit together, but where does it leave things for actually having teams playing rugby league in Canada at a pre-Masters age?
Well, I'm thankfully I haven't burned too many bridges, and I'm able to chat with most people. And most people are willing to talk to me about what's going on. In terms of the NARL, the sponsorship simply dried up, from what I understand, and without any money, it's very difficult to go ahead. So now again, I'm hearing this secondhand, but Sportsflick was going to be a major sponsor of that, and they ceased trading. So without your major funding behind the league, you can't really run the league. At one point it was going to be, I think you remember, there were going to be 12 teams, 6 out west, 6 in Eastern North America. Then those divided, and all of a sudden it was just going to be 6 teams in the East. And then it was 5 plus a surprise team that we didn't know who that surprise team was going to be. None of that bodes well. And fans wanted to hear more about what was happening, and they were ready. But because there's been so many false starts, they are now very, very skeptical of anything that's taking place. Now, I can say that behind the scenes, the Triple CRL, they are making sure that everything is done right. They are doing their due diligence. They are organizing. They are, very professional. They don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. They would rather take their time to get it right. So, but they're going to be doing 9s. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops. I know a couple of the people behind it. They're professional. They really have the good of the game at heart. Will that come to fruition? I'm hopeful about that. I'm positive about that.
So there is still a future then for rugby league in North America. That's quite promising. Maybe not what we thought it would be, but we need a foothold. We need it to remain, because from that it can build.
Yeah, I was just saying, just back to Martyn's question earlier on about the fan base. We spoke about it in one of our previous shows with you, Nicholas, and you made a great comment there. That, just to reiterate, there was a misconception that most of the fans for Toronto were expats, but you were saying that wasn't the case. There was quite a lot of homebred support there.
I mean, you could find every Super League jersey in the crowd. You could find Wigan supporters, Castleford supporters, Wakefield, everybody, and the other divisions as well. But they weren't in the majority, because most of the time at matches, you'd be hearing people simply saying, "What's happening? I don't get that. What's going on?" And so people who did know would be turning around and teaching other people. And so there was a lot of these Canadian accents, shall we say, Canadian voices, who were trying to learn what was going on and falling in love with it. So the idea that it was all expats, or that it was all free tickets, or people who were there because of the quote novelty of it, no, people were there because it was a fantastic sport to watch. It was a great game day experience. It was welcoming. It was family friendly, and they wanted to come back because of that. So no, it wasn't all expats, certainly. I mean, I'm not an expat.
You sound like you're from Berry.
Barrie, not URY.
I mean, that's really interesting and quite encouraging. We were almost over Toronto, well, it was there for a couple of years and doing really well. You're doing some fantastic work with the Masters. I really hope that continues to grow, because you're getting more people watching and playing rugby league as part of those experiences. I love the idea of picking an area and saying, we're coming out there anyway, so you best get yourself a team for when we turn up. That's a great way to spread it. So the best of luck with the future of Rugby League Masters and the future of Rugby League in North America. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we finish up the show?
No, I appreciate all the support. I would also like to thank the Masters clubs in the UK who have reached out to us, hearing that the Grizzlies are coming back in November, who have said, come and play us, because there's plenty of clubs that would love to host us. The Masters community is incredibly welcoming and incredibly supportive of one another. Yeah. And my hope is that when I retire from teaching in 3.5 years, I can devote a little more time to rugby league.
Brilliant. I think there's one at Thatcherith, actually. Thatcherith Masters have been going quite some years as well, and quite well established. So maybe there's a link there. Yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully so. Well, keep up the great work. It's been fantastic.
Good luck, Nicholas. We'll watch with enormous interest. Thanks. Real pleasure.
You can play, Martyn. You know that, right?
I know. Yeah, I'll come over, mate, and be a Grizzly. That's my new ambition.
Maybe one day we'll all go over there and play in a team together. That would be great.
A bunch of Grizzlies.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be great. Well, best of luck with it, and thank you very much to Nicholas, to Mark, and to Martyn.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank you.